Hello, everyone, and I would like to welcome you all today. I'm so happy to be with all of you, and it's such a wonderful opportunity today for you guys to learn more about flower essences and especially St. John's wort for seasonal affective disorder. Also, I want to let you know that Ruth is here. So if you have any questions today, please put a question mark in front of your question in our chat box. And we also want to offer you guys the opportunity to join our Common Sense community because it's a way for you to continue your flower essence journey. And Ruth is going to be putting those links in the chat too for you, and she's going to pin them up there. So that way you have that because our community is has such wonderful and warm people. And they're holistic practitioners, massage therapists, aromatherapists, flower essence practitioners, nurses, podiatrists. And we have group chat every Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time where you can ask us any questions for 30 minutes. Plus, we have a live workshop like this. And oh, hi everyone. Hi Mimi. Hi Kathy. Hi Terry. Hi everyone. Put in the chat where you're from. We'd love to have you guys tell us where you're from. So that way we can see. It looks like we've got people from Panama, Chicago, Pennsylvania, um, just all over. It's wonderful to see this. And I just want to invite you all to join our Common Sense community so that way you can be part of this every single month. And it's something that you also can get discounts with because our next flower essence course is going to be, mark this down, take a pen and paper, mark it down. It's going to be January 12th. And so we want you guys to be able to be in that. And when you're in the Common Sense community, you'll get a 10% discount. And if you get signed up, the first 10 people, you will get to come to California and have a flower essence retreat for 3 days at my house where I cook organic foods for you. We make flower essences and we learn more about the power of the flower. So I wanted to give you guys these beautiful announcements that we have coming up in 2026. And so that way you get signed up now for the Common Sense community. And let's begin our live class now for you. And this is our class. It's called Restore Your Inner Sunshine, Break the Seasonal Affective Disorder Cycle with St. John's Flower Essence. I became acquainted with this flower over 30 some years ago when I became a flower essence practitioner. So I've been in the natural health business now for over 37 years. And I really love St. John's wort. It draws the light into us and it balances the light within us. And as you can see here, my daughter and I, if you haven't have, how many of you guys been watching our meditations and our videos? Raise your hands. Okay, great. Wonderful. So my daughter and I picked St. John's wort this summer. And so we made the tincture and we also made the macerated oil from St. John's wort. And a lot of people don't know about the flower and how it helps you. So we really felt that it was time to really let people know how it can help you so very much. So, do you transition from summer to autumn easily? Please put it in the chat and I'm going to check this out to see how many of you transition from summer to autumn easily. I've got one person here said no. I've got some other private messages here, so I'm going to go into the chat and see here real quick. And it looks like we've got people from Denmark. Wow. Absolutely not. Okay, Diane says. Carolyn says, I'm good with them. Jan says, no, she's not. Ruth says, yes, love them both. Um, and Denise is from New Jersey. We've got people from Panama, Kansas, Calgary, Alberta, just all over. So it looks like, and yes, Teresa says, yes, I love the autumn. And Brenda says it takes time for her to recover. And so far, that's the comments. So some of you do, and some of you don't. Now, I love transitioning from summer into autumn. I really love that. It reminds me of when I was a kid getting ready to go to school. And that's the time of year because I lived in a very hot place, Bakersfield, California, 110 degrees in the summer. And so what would happen is that's when it started to cool off and you got the dew on the grass and you could smell the sweetness of the grass. So that's it for me. I love coming into autumn. And this is why, though, it's nice that we have such a beautiful flower that I'm going to share with you today and how you can use it to help you make this transition easier. So we always do breathing because that's part of the Lori method. So what I want you guys to do is sit up straight in your chair, feet flat on the floor, and put your right hand on your chest. So put your right hand on your chest and your left hand above your belly button. The reason I'm asking you to do this is because autumn is the time in Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine, is the time of metal, which is the organs that correspond are the lungs and the large intestine. Okay? Make sure you have a pen and paper. And I want you to close your eyes and I want you to just breathe normally. And I want you to observe your breath. You don't have to breathe deep. I just want you to breathe normally, but hold your hands on these two places. And I'm going to put you on the timer for 1 minute. So just close your eyes, right hand on your chest, and left hand on right at your, a little bit above your belly button. So you're right there at your large intestine. Just breathe normally. So slowly open your eyes, and now I want you to write down how you felt while breathing normally. And then how do you feel now? What were the sensations? What were the smells or the feelings that you were having that were coming up as you were just breathing normally? Okay, so some people in the chat are already making comments. Mimi from Panama says she feels calmness and awareness. Teresa said need to slow down and calmer now. That's great. Kathy says calm and focused. Nice. So we can just see by just taking 1 minute how that can get us in touch with how we're really feeling. All right, anybody else put the stuff in the chat? Ruth said peaceful and unrushed. Carolyn said my chest feels tight and I can't get enough air, so I feel worried. That's great that you can sense that, Carolyn. All right. So now what we're going to do is, again, we're going to keep our right hand on our chest. Remember, feet flat on the floor. And I want you to imagine a golden thread from the top of your head up to the sky pulling you, and pull your neck back. So that way you're in a neck lock, okay? And that way you'll sit up straighter. You'll feel your spine right there, very straight, okay? And now we're going to take 3 deep breaths, but when we do, the inhale is going to be in through the nose. You're going to expand your body vertically. And as you exhale through your mouth slowly and deeply, you're going to release the breath horizontally, which means your breath is going to start slowly coming down, right? And then as it comes down, along this conception vessel here, you're going to be pushing your belly button into your spine. That way you get all that air out. And we're going to do this 3 times. So inhale and exhale. And inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Now write down how you felt while breathing deeply and how you feel now. Okay, Mimi says, I feel lighter. She feels lighter. Great. And Ruth says, I feel a little lightheaded. Yes, that can happen when maybe you haven't been breathing as deep as you normally do. And then all of a sudden you start breathing deep, you'll feel a little lightheaded because you're getting more oxygen in your bloodstream and to your brain. Anybody else like to share how they're feeling? I'll go in the chat and check it out. Carolyn says, chest is still tight, but I could get more air in. I did notice that my heart is holding on a lot of stuff. Excellent. That's great that you are aware of it and that the breathing is helping you come into contact with that. Excellent. Anybody else? How are you feeling? Please put it in the chat. We want to know how this exercise is affecting you. So, whoops, excuse me, I hit too many things. So today, as you're sending your messages to me, I want you to let you know today, this is what we're going to be learning about. What is seasonal affective disorder? What is a flower essence? History of flower essences. We're going to talk about our featured flower essence, St. John's wort. We'll have our St. John's wort meditation, the applications of St. John's wort, and how to use them for seasonal affective disorder, how to use it for that. So I'm going to give you some applications, very simple, easy ones to do. And then how to continue your flower essence journey. So, what is seasonal affective disorder? Seasonal affective disorder is a mood disorder, a subset in which people who typically have a normal mental health through most of the year exhibit depressive symptoms at the same time each year. How many of you exhibit depressive symptoms at the same time each year? And I'm not just talking about autumn, I'm talking about summer and I'm talking about winter. Raise your hands. Okay, so we've got a few of you here that are doing that because the thing with is summer, people think, oh no, I couldn't have seasonal affective disorder. But yes, you can. Because what happens is if you're very sensitive and have fairer skin normally, what happens is you can't take that much sunlight in. And this is where St. John's wort works. It works for both indications, both polarities of light. So that's what's so cool about it. So here are some of the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. Persistent sadness, anxious, or empty mood most of the day, nearly every day for at least 2 weeks. Feelings of hopelessness or pessimism, feelings of irritability, frustration, or restlessness, feelings of guilt, worthlessness, or helplessness, loss of interest or pleasure in hobbies and activities, decreased energy, fatigue, or feeling slowed down, difficulty concentrating, remembering, or making decisions, changes in sleep or appetite, or unplanned weight changes, physical aches or pains, headaches, cramps, or digestive problems that do not have a clear physical cause and do not go away with treatment, thoughts of death or suicide attempts. So, how many? Now, you don't have to feel all of these to have seasonal affective disorder, but it needs to persist for, at least 2 weeks. How many of you have some of these symptoms? Raise your hand or put it in the chat. Okay, so we have a few of you. All right. And now put in the chat to me if it's winter or autumn or summer, or if it's all three of the seasons. Each time you transition into a season, you have a challenge. Put it in the chat, right in the chat so I can see it. Okay, some people it's winter so far. It's winter. Winter, summer when it's very hot. Jan says when the time goes back an hour, when we fall back. I would say that's my most difficult time too. It's those first few days there we fall back and it gets so dark at night because I like a lot of sun. So I get that. And then Kathy says in summer when it's very hot and humid. Yes. And if you're very fair skinned, it's harder for you to take that in. And Betty says mine is winter when there's no sun or anytime weather is not sunny. So she really loves the sun. And I know Betty is in Florida. So I get that. I get that. And Brenda says, would have trouble working in a hospital or similar shift work. Oh, I definitely could not do such a thing as that. I couldn't work in TV or any place where I had to be indoors all the time. It's or shift work. There's no way. Shift work can really cause problems. And yes, Kathy says she's very fair skinned. Yes, and it's harder for fair skinned people in to take into the light. And I didn't realize this, and I hope Ruth, just give me a thumbs up if it's okay that I mention how when I had Ruth, is Irish and she's in Ireland right now, and she said, "Sure, I can say it," but I had never seen someone. We were just seeing the sun, and it was maybe 20 degrees. So that's what maybe it's not. Is it around maybe 80, Ruth, or 78 or something? And she was sitting outside with me and her sister in law, who is from California and Arizona. So we're used to the heat, right? We're like desert rats. And poor Ruth, we were out there 30 minutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to go in. She just started turning beet red all over everywhere. So I really understood then how the sun affected fairer skinned people. And it's very true. So this is why St. John's wort flower essence is going to be very beneficial for all of us. So what is a flower essence? According to Dr. Bach, each living plant has an inherent original pattern. And as we see here in this little photo here, we see the pattern of a flower, right? And we see that it has a geometric pattern. And flowers have their they're they have these geometric patterns energetically, just like we do in our energy field. So flower essences are liquid potentized preparations, each carrying a distinct imprint of the character of a particular flower that addresses your imbalances mentally, emotionally within your soul, working through your energy field, like this little picture here shows, to help you let go of your habits, addictions, and patterns. And the thing is St. John's wort is one of these that really does help bring balance to us mentally and emotionally during these transitions. Also for children who are bedwetters, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So to obtain the original energy pattern, flowers are placed in a glass bowl like this with spring water and put in the sun for 2 to 3 hours. The sun infuses the energetic pattern into the water, and thus it's called the sun method. Now, also there's the boiling method that Dr. Bach did, where the flowers, leaves, and twigs are picked and boiled in spring water for half an hour. And this is like with red chestnut, pine, most of your tree essences are done this way. Now, St. John's wort, the one that we're looking at today, it's obtained by the sun method. Now let's look at the history of flower essences. Oh, can you guys see the slides? It could be either my internet connection or yours. Can you see history of flower essences? Okay, all right. So Mimi, check your connection. Check your connection. Because sometimes my connection isn't so great either, huh? I've done my best today to get you on the best connection because our internet, our Wi-Fi is out, and so I'm using my phone data. History of flower essences. Dr. Edward Bach was a medical doctor back bacteriologist, and homeopathic. He is known in homeopathy for the Bach noseads made from bowel flora. So he was looking into the brain and gut. And this was in the early 1900s because he was a physician during World War I, and he had to have an emergency surgery during that time on his spleen because he had like a tumor on his spleen. His friends removed it, but they said you don't have much chance of living. Well, he continued living, and he said the reason he did is because he had a purpose. And this is what he was finding with his patients is people were not staying on their purpose. They were miserable. Whether you took the gallbladder, whether you gave them a medication, he said they were not happy. And he felt that was the reason he stopped his practice and he went into nature to find, and he found the power of the flower and the trees, and realized that they had, and he really worked with them to find out how they could help us with our imbalances and bring us into balance emotionally and mentally. And he's very well known. Of course, he's the one who started Bach flower remedies, and there's 38 of them. And of course, how many of you guys all know Rescue Remedy? Raise your hand. All right, most of you know that. He's the one who developed Rescue Remedy. And it's such a wonderful flower essence, isn't it? Now, today, the flower essence that we're looking at was not developed by Dr. Bach. It was developed by Richard Katz and Patricia Kamniski. And they are with the Flower Essence Services. And so if you guys want to order from them, you can just get on their site. And Ruth, it's www.fesflowers.com. Go there and you can order it directly from them for our flower today that we're looking at. So our featured flower is St. John's wort. The pattern of imbalance is overly expanded state of psychic and physical vulnerability, deep fears, and disturbed dreams. So you can use this for children who have nightmares. It really works well for nightmares. So if you have a child who's always waking up and very disturbed, you can put a drop of St. John's wort on your finger and just rub it on the back of their neck and soothe your child back to sleep. So it's great for that. The positive qualities is illumined consciousness, light-filled awareness, and strength. So it's like when you draw the sun, the solar aspect of the sun into you, as you do when you take this St. John's wort flower essence, it fills you with strength and awareness. So if you can't take it in because you're physically vulnerable, as we were talking about fair skinned people, what it does then is it helps you where you can take it in more slowly as you need it. Because that's what's happened is your system can't do that as easily as other people. And Carolyn says, she says, I love this flower essence. I call it liquid light. Thank you, Carolyn, for that. That is great. So according to Kaminsky, in the 12 windows of plant perception, because this flower is shaped like a star, these forms radiate outward and well-defined symmetry and geometry. As a whole, they are more cosmic in orientation. They're up, looking up towards the sky, right? And generally speaking, star forms in flowers uplift the consciousness, bestowing light, harmony, and synthesis. So, like I said, if you can't synthesize the sun well, it helps you do that. And it brings the light in balance with you. Most star forms speak to the spiritual and mental aspects of the soul life. And you can read more about that in the 12 Windows of the Plant Perception. It's available at the Flower Essence Society on their blog. And then also this information here I got from the Flower Essence Repertoire too. And Ruth just stuck in the link to the 12 Windows of Plant Perception. She just stuck that in for you. Also, I want to let you guys know that it is for very sensitive people. And so when you are fair skinned, you are more sensitive because you're more prone to many forms of environmental stress, including allergies. They're also, these people have very active psychic lives, so it's astral life, right? And as we see this flower, yes, it is open up to the sky, but if you get really close into the center of it, it's drawing you back in to the earth because it has a very strong root system, the St. John's wort does. And it also says because of this, you could be very expanded during your sleep, often distorting its connection with the physical and etheric bodies or with the ego. This weak association to the other bodies results in the propensity for invasion or attack from negative elemental forces, especially during sleep, causing dream disturbances. Bedwetting or night sweats can be common symptoms. St. John's wort flower essence has marvelous restorative powers, just like the sun, right? Keep that sun in there. While it's generally indicated for those who are oversensitive to light, it can also be helpful for those who are deprived of light, such as seasonal affective disorder. At its deepest level of transformation, St. John's wort helps the soul to circulate light through the body and into the earth. There we go again with those deep roots, right? So it's out like this, right? You've got your petals out here. Imagine my head is the center and the light is coming into me, into my body, down through all my meridians, into my feet and into the ground. So this is why it works for people who are very sensitive, overly sensitive, or people who are not grounded also. Rather than experiencing light as an external or merely physical reality, light works within the self as a spiritual force, which can illumine and anchor the consciousness. So this is just such a beautiful flower. I'm so happy I get to share it with you. And we're going to do a St. John's wort meditation. So again, you're going to put your feet flat on the floor. You're going to do your neck lock. And let me go to my meditation here. And remember, sit up straight, right? Let me grab my other phone because I've got phones here that I have to use to be connected to the internet and one be connected into my other stuff. It's quite complicated some days. But we all seem to manage, don't we? Thank you, St. John's wort, for keeping the light. So sit up straight, feet flat on the floor, and remember you have the golden cord pulling you up and pull your neck back. That's a neck lock, it's called. So that way you're sitting up straight. Okay. Now we're going to take 3 deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And on this last breath, really remember, expand out and imagine The St. John's wort flower, helping you expand and bringing the light in, and then breathing out. Here we go. Now, I want you to focus in on the flower. Open your eyes slowly, and I want you to look at the flower. I want you to look at the petals, the stamen, the center, the leaves. And I want to see what part of the flower draws you in as I speak. I wrote this meditation for the solar eclipse, the autumn equinox, with the St. John's wort flower. St. John's wort flower, protect me with your brilliant energy as I walk daily through life's elements, fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. Shine your rays of light upon me. Radiate deep in my soul. Guide me with your illumination of a star out of a dark hole. Bring me the stamina to be centered within myself, to overcome the night with thoughts of despair, and with your golden air of brightness to hold in my heart. Open my sense of space to shine upon a new start. St. John's wort flower, draw your light from the solar eclipse into the season of autumn with the protection of the metal element as my armor of happiness and health. Now just take a few seconds here and just really let this flower draw you into it, and then let me know in the chat how it made you feel to hear the words about St. John's wort, and then also to look at it. Carolyn said, I automatically smiled. I was drawn in by the stamen. I can also breathe way better. Oh, that's beautiful, Carolyn. I mean, look, from when we started 38 minutes ago, and now she's not tight in her chest anymore. By just focusing in on her breath and this flower. Please share anyone else what your experience is with the St. John's wort flower. And I could see how the stamen would make you smile. It's almost like the little stamens coming up from the center are like happy little antennas, you know? It's so beautiful. So now let's look at the applications of St. John's wort flower essence. Oh, and before we do that, Kathy said, lovely words, beautifully written, would like a copy, enjoyed the red stamens, which called me forward. Yes, we will send you all a copy of it. And we'll send it in a PDF file, because if you stay till the end, you will get a free PDF file. All participants get a free PDF file about St. John's wort, which Zoe's written, and which you will have the meditation into. And Rue says, I was drawn to the center. No lightheadedness anymore. That is great. So it's interesting. Here she had a lightheadedness, and now she's been drawn into the center of the flower, and now she doesn't have that anymore. So it came into her energy field, right? And then Kathy says I have St. John's wort at the farm growing wild. And yes, it is a wild plant from North America. And in some states, if you have St. John's wort on your property, they will come by and they will spray it because it can be invasive, yet they're killing it with with herbicides, excuse me. So if you have some, guard it, pick it before anybody comes around, and make yourself a maceration. Yeah, it's incredible. That is in the state of Idaho that I know for sure that they use herbicides on it. And because we had people in our common sense community who lived in Idaho who explained that to me, that if they find St. John's wort on your property, they will use an herbicide. I know it's really incredible because it can be pretty invasive, but if you do find it on your property, just kind of keep it cut back a little bit. Now we have St. John's wort growing in like my backyard, but it never takes over the yard at all in my backyard. And then we have St. John's wort all over France on the sides of the roads, but I've never seen where it's took over something. I don't know if any of you guys have experienced that or not. So let's look at some applications of how you can use St. John's wort flower essence for seasonal affective disorder. So you can now what you're going to do is you're going to take 4 drops of your St. John's wort flower essence, and you're going to put 4 drops under your tongue for 28 days. That way you'll really help transition yourself into autumn or into winter or during summer, you know? And this is something that's very interesting to also think about. Now, if you go and you get a stock bottle from the Flower Essence Services, that is a stock bottle. So what you'll want to do if you've never used flower essences before, you're going to want to take that stock bottle, take a 1-ounce amber bottle, and drop 4 drops of your stock bottle into that amber bottle. Put about a third of that, so that's about 10 ml of alcohol in it, brandy or vegetable glycerin, or you can put in apple cider vinegar. And then you're going to add your water to your bottle. You're going to put your dropper on it, and then you're going to palpitate it. Okay, I have a bottle right here. Yeah, you're going to go like that, okay, with the bottle. Then you're going to put your label on it, St. John's wort. Now, the reason I'm saying this is if you haven't used a flower essence before and you just start taking them out of the stock bottle, it's more powerful. And so your energy field has to get used to using them like that. And by you diluting it and making a dosage bottle like this, then you can just take 4 drops under your tongue like that, okay? Now, another great way to do it is you can take 4 drops of your St. John's wort flower essence, and you can put it in an ounce of cream. Say you want to use a cream on your skin, at night before you go to bed. Or maybe you're using the maceration of St. John's wort, and you could put it in that. Or any kind of carrier oil, almond oil, apricot oil. And I would massage it on your chest and on your large intestine. And the reason, especially this time of year of autumn, is because we're working with the metal element, which is the lungs, and the large intestine. And what do people do this time of year? What really do they start having at this time of year? Put it in the chat. Oh, and then Betty asked me a question. She said, "Do you prefer brandy instead of vodka?" Yes, I use brandy when I make my flower essences. I use brandy, but some people use, vegetable glycerin if they have problems with alcohol or apple cider vinegar. How many of you have ever used St. John's wort flower essence? Raise your hands. Oh, great. Super. And Mimi said, yeah, people start getting colds. Yes, they start getting colds, don't they? And this is autumn is one of the biggest time for people to have allergies. So this is another reason to use St. John's wort is to help with this type of thing, help people to transition from summer into the autumn so that way they don't get these colds. Because remember, like I read out of the repertoire, it's for people who are very sensitive to the environment. And like Shirley said, I didn't know it was a flower essence. Yes, we always hear about the maceration of it. We hear about the tincture, but we don't hear a lot about people using the flower essence unless you've been, just totally involved in flower essences. So this is why Ruth and Zoe and I just felt it was something that we should talk about and let you guys know. So now, if let's look here at number 2 again. If you are going to use it in winter, then I would suggest you rub it on the lower part below your belly where your kidneys are and bladder there, because those are the organs for winter in Chinese medicine. And we've got someone else has said some things here. Let's see. Yes, a good question Brenda had. She said, it's good for any transition. Yes, any transition, especially seasonal transitions, or if you have a lot of environmental issues, your body is overly sensitive. It's an excellent one to have, and it's 4 drops in a 1 ounce bottle or 30 ml. So if you're in Europe, or if you're in South America, it's a 30 ml bottle. In you're North America, it's a 1 ounce bottle. Okay. And you're going to do, if it's 30 ml, you're going to do 10 ml here, and you're going to add 20 ml of water. Okay. It's not a Bach flower remedy. It is from the Flower Essence Services. And Ruth stuck, I think, Ruth, did you pin it to the top? Give me a thumbs up if you pinned it to the top. She gave the address where you guys can order it directly from them. All right. So now, how can you do this on your feet? So, a great way to use flower essences is on your feet in a cream or a carrier oil. So, you could do the reflex points on your feet to the lungs and the large intestine on your feet if you want, or you could do it on your hands before you went to bed. This is another thing to do. So that way you rest better. Maybe you don't have such disturbed dreams or disturbed sleep. Another great way to use it is in a foot bath. You can add 4 drops of St. John's wort flower essence to every 1 ounce of water. So, you're going to be using quite a bit of water if you put it in a foot bath. But still, if sit down at night, maybe you're watching TV, or maybe you do projects, knitting or crocheting, or, things like that, you could soak your feet in it. And this is a great way for you to, relax also. You could do it while you're reading a book. Relax, soak your feet, and give your feet a nice treat, and then also help you with transitioning for the seasonal affective disorder. This is such a beautiful flower essence. Let me see. I think we had another in the chat. We had another question, I think. Let me see here. Yes, Ruth said she pinned the flower essence at the top and the flower essence blog post too. And did you pin the Common Sense Community, Ruth, up there also? Let me know. So that way you guys can go just directly to those links. So make sure that you copy paste those and put them on your computer in a Word file so you have those. All right. And then we will send it to you also in an email. We'll send you this recording, we'll send you the slides, and we'll send you a link to go to these different places so that way you can get this ordered and start using it. So it's great that quite a few of you have already started using it. And Betty said, yes, she definitely is going to order it. And Ruth's going to pin the Common Sense Community. If you're not a Common Sense Community member yet, you need to be so you can learn more about these flower essences like we have been this whole year. And she just pinned that one too. So you can subscribe and become a member. And then that way, when you take the flower essence course, you get it at a 10% discount. So now we're going to do another breathing exercise. And this is our final breathing exercise that we're going to do together. And we're going to do 3 deep breaths. And what I want you to remember that this month is the month of metal. And metal is the month where we're, as the Chinese say, when I went to my acupuncturist, he said, Lori, we're going into autumn, we're transitioning. And he says, this is the time of year because the lungs represent grief and the large intestine represents letting go, right? He said, as we transition into autumn, which we have, but we're still, we're just at the beginning of it, right? He said, people can become very melancholic if they're not careful. It's like being on, the edge of a sword and you kind of go off of it, right? And you go deeply into this grief and you start feeling very melancholic. So he said the Chinese call it the short death. So that's why I decided to do this too, because I went and saw him 3 weeks ago and he and I were discussing all of this. And I thought, oh, wow, we've got to tell people about St. John's wort so they don't fall down into that, into the melancholy. So let's take 3 deep breaths together, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Here we go. Now, slowly open your eyes, and I want you to write down or sense how you're feeling now after we've done these 3 different breathing exercises. And let me know in the chat. And while you're doing that, Carolyn said it's sad talking about St. John's wort being, hit with herbicides because flowers grow in places where we need them the most, telling us what we need as an individual and as a society. In Alberta, we don't have St. John's wort in the wild and we aren't allowed to grow it. And she's in Canada where you guys get where you're living, what you have, a what, 300 and some days of sun, Carolyn? Or is that just in Red Deer? Because I know you get a lot of snow and you get some clouds. So a lot of people could be affected by seasonal affective disorder there. And if they're not allowing it to be grown there, that is very sad. So, and speaking of that, while you guys are feeling and letting me know how you feel, today I went to the hospital and with my husband because he had back surgery. And I stepped out of the car and I was being very vigilant with him about using, doing his physical therapy and things like this. And I got out of the car and I went to step down and there was vervain, the flower essence of vervain, which told me, Lori, it's his business, it's his stuff. You can't inspire him to do something he doesn't want to do. So, like Carolyn said, flowers grow where we need them, and they're right there for us. So, think about what's in your vicinity. Think about that. So, let me see what you guys have said. Mimi says, I feel hopeful and more optimistic. Carolyn says, at peace, lighter, and I feel like I need to sleep. And she said, yes, Carolyn says in Alberta, we get a lot of sun. However, I think it's due to the cold, heavy nature of winter. It pulls people down. So again, there's something to do with the light and holding the light within us, right? Because with the snow and everything, even though you get light and glistening off the snow, but is how is it that we keep it within ourselves and we stay light and not become too heavy when we have very more challenging winters? So let's look at this last little quote here. It's St. John's wort flower. Draw your light from the solar eclipse into the season of autumn with the protection of the metal element as my armor of health and happiness. And before we go, Kathy says, calm, ready for a nap, ready to be invigorated with cooler days and winter bitter cold and wind. And Carolyn said, yes, good point. I forget that snow also reflects the light. It doesn't bring it in like plants do. Yes, so it pushes it away. See, it's like this little glistening stuff. And you don't have the plant to draw it back into you. It's like your CO2, your oxygen, and everything that with plants is different when you have the snow, right? You've got the trees, but you don't have the other green plants around you that are bringing this to you. So it's very interesting, isn't it? So, how can you continue your flower essence journey? You can join our Common Sense community where you can learn more about flower essences, essential oils, traditional Chinese medicine, like we've talked about today, reflexology, and we have all these wonderful people in our Common Sense community. We have quite a few are here today with us, and I'm so glad you guys came. And we have people who are naturopathic doctors, people who are massage therapists, nurses, podiatrists, just everyone who's interested, and just people who are just natural health enthusiasts who are interested in natural health and want to learn more. So it's $19.95 per month for 12 months. and it's $209.95 per year. So, all of you who aren't Common Sense Community members, we love for you to get signed up as soon as possible so you can take advantage of our next class, which, let me see here, is going to be it's going to be on passion and purpose with wild oat, which is a Dr. Bach flower essence. And it's going to be on October 7th. So if you get signed up, you'll be able to come to that class. And it's a great class. You get the slides, the recordings. If you can't make it, we have the recordings put up and you can watch it anytime at your own convenience. So now, how many people are interested in joining the Common Sense community? Raise your hand. Oh, it looks like we have some there already. That's great. Let me see here. Ah, super. That's wonderful. So now let's look at questions and answers. Does anybody have any more questions? Yeah, Brenda said, Lori, you name bedwetters. Yes, if you have a child who's a bedwetter, what you can do is you can just take one drop of your St. John's wort like this, put it on your finger, and when they're upset, it's hard. And if they're crying from their nightmare, you don't want to put something under their tongue. You just want to put it right on the back of their neck or on their pulse points right here like this. Okay, and then comfort them and get them where they can relax and go back to sleep, but it will really help with the bedwetting and also with any kind of nightmares. Bedwetting is something that sometimes you're so out here when you're sleeping, you aren't connected into your body and you don't even realize that, right? So this is part of the situation. My brother would do that. He'd sleep so hard, um, not till he was very old, but that did happen. So thank you, Ruth, for being on. I really appreciate it. So does anybody else have any other questions? I'm here to answer them. Oh, Veronica asked me this. Can you repeat why brandy is used instead of vodka? Um, We in flower essences, we use brandy. Brandy is a little bit stronger and it holds the flower essence longer because it has a higher degree of alcohol. That's the reason. If you want your flower essences to last about 7 years, brandy will do that. Glycerin is not going to do that. Glycerin, it's only going to last, maybe a year or two because once you add um, glycerin to water to glycerin, then you have a higher risk of bacteria. Now, with apple cider vinegar, you don't, it's going to last a long time too. It's just with the glycerin that you're going to have more problems with bacteria. So you need to use them up quick, faster. And then Betty said, what flower essences are we doing for October, November, and December? Oh, wow, Betty. That's a great question. Well, October is wild oat for sure. I know that. And then Dawn says here, she says, could plants not thrive that try to grow if we don't need them? I used to have hollyhock in my yard all the time for years. And then all of a sudden, what would happen was uh, when I moved and when I was in the countryside here in France on Domaine de Castellou, I had hollyhocks. But as soon as I moved here and when I moved to the house in California, no more hollyhocks. So that flower I no longer needed. So yes, sunflowers, not sunflowers, but sunflowers will come and grow. And Dawn says, I try to grow lavender and I can't keep it alive. I think it's because you use so much lavender, Dawn. Oh, hollyhocks have an interesting energy. Hollyhocks are about standing up for yourself, and they are a research essence. So if you want to order it from Flower Essence Services, you can, and give them more information about it, because it's not in their repertoire, in the normal repertoire. So let them know. But that's my experience at standing up for yourself, but yet being gentle too. Because if you look at the flower and you touch the flower, it opens up like this to you, doesn't it? And it's like communicating with you, kind of almost like when a sunflower does too, but differently, and how it curves over a hollyhock does, right? But the petals of a hollyhock are like very smooth, but they have a ridge in them. So it's like you're standing up for yourself, you're gently doing it, but you're going to be solid about it. That's what the hollyhock represents to me. So any other questions? Oh, Mimi says, when you dilute with brandy, not a stock bottle, how long will the dosage bottle last? Well, usually a stock bottle like this, when you dilute it, you have your brandy here, you have your water here. It's going to last a long time. I would say at least over a year. It could go over a year, because the brandy in it is going to keep it strong, nice and powerful. It's going to kill any bacteria that gets in the water, except if you touch it directly on your skin or under your tongue and you get bacteria in your dropper. That will be the biggest challenge with any, no matter what you use. So brandy for me is the best unless you have challenges with alcohol. All right. So this was great having all of you with me here today. Anybody else have any other questions? Ruth or I? Please feel free to ask. That's what I'm here for. We did the lavender one, we did the energy of hollyhocks, we did the brandy. Anybody else have any other questions? And I'm sorry, Betty, I don't have it memorized for November or December, but we are doing wild oat in October, and it's about your purpose and your passion for your purpose and staying on track of what your direction is with wild oat. That's what our next class is October 7th. So make sure you all get signed up for the Common Sense community. And we are so happy that we had you here with us today. Please check out our website at www.lorihargis.com. Please make sure you hit the links, get your St. John's wort ordered, and don't forget your essentials. Use your common sense. Au revoir.